mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 6, Episode 5 of Amazon's The Expanse, entitled Why We Fight. While I really enjoyed this episode left me feeling actually fairly confident that we're going to get more Expanse beyond this season. Like, I feel like they have a plan because there's so much left to cover in this final episode. I don't think it's possible. Like, unless this thing's like 2 hours long, which I'm pretty sure is on the table. Like, I mean, it's possible, but you know, they only made it 6 episodes. They've only been about 45 minutes a piece. Like, they've stripped away a lot from this season as far as like runtime and things that they cover that, you know, I was concerned about whether or not they'd be able to make a good final season. Now I'm wondering, like, this must be just the final season on Amazon or something. Like, I feel like they must have a plan because there's just way too much left to cover. And I felt like this episode was almost kind of like a bridge episode, like a transition into the finale, which I'd be okay with that if this weren't the final season, but that bothers me. It would bother me if I truly believed that we weren't going to get any more Expanse. But now I'm starting to think that we almost have to, because why would you set up more than you can actually wrap up if you didn't already have like some sort of plan or some sort of idea of what the future of the show was going to be like? And yeah, I just feel like this episode did a lot to set up the finale, but left so many things open, and they touched on all these things, but left so many things that need to be wrapped up that I just don't know if they could do it in another 45-minute episode. I don't know if they can do it in an hour and a half long episode, but let me talk about this episode real quick. I'm not going to get into the details on why I look like shit right now. I just woke up. I watched the episode last night, and I want to get this video out. These past couple of days, I've had to move mountains in order to watch episodes to get videos out. So I look like shit, but hey, just fucking deal. I don't know what to tell you. So we start on Laconia, and just as we all kind of predicted would happen, Kara takes her body. Kara uses her body to take her brother's body to into the woods to find the strange dogs to bring her brother back to life, and it's successful, sort of. He's like got like proto-molecule eyes. He talked kind of cryptically, like he says something like, "Oh, I've never seen that before," and like I don't know what he saw. He says he feels different. He like looks at his hands weird, which is, I mean, again, if you were like brought back to life from the dead, you're probably going to be kind of weird to start off with, especially. But if proto-molecules evolve, you're definitely going to be weird. So, yeah, that's really all that we get out of that scene. We still don't really have an idea on what like the military stuff that we were kind of hearing is like background chatter in the scenes involving Kara and her brother. Like we don't really know where that's going. Like we now have a clear picture of what Cortazar was probably talking about. I mean, it's not definitive that that's what Cortazar was talking about, but we have a pretty good idea of what Cortazar was talking about with Duarte last week. But there's still a lot of gray area, I think, in how it's going to connect to Laconia's timeline. Because like, why even if you can relate the background chatter to what's happening, you know, within the rest of the show, how do you relate what's the whole Kara storyline, which has been the focal point of this? How do you tie that into the whole rest of the story? And I kind of feel like it might be, again, that's one of those things I'm like, can they wrap that up in one episode? But we'll see. But yeah, she brings the brother back to life, and he's super fucking weird. And yeah, I don't know where we're gonna go with that. The focal point of this episode is the revelation that, and this is what I'm assuming Cortazar was talking about having active, like if we get this popping, it's going to be great, and why Marco has been so kind of encouraged, even in situations where things have been discouraging. We found out they got 6 rail guns that they built onto the ring station near Medina, and that these ring guns essentially make that whole area like just fucking indestructible. Like you just can't get over there. And essentially, it looks like the finale is going to set up essentially a race to get to those guns between Marco on the Pella and our people on the Rossi. And I really liked the fact that they opened that part of the episode with the attack that we kind of had foreshadowed last week with the MCRN captain who was with Avasarala and who said that they were going to go after Medina Station anyway, and they jumped right into that to open the episode, and those ships were quickly vanquished. But yeah, it looks like that's what we're setting up for the finale, and yeah, it's again, even that seems like a little bit too simple. Like, okay, first one of the railguns wins. Like, okay, that's your grand ending for this entire series. Is first one to the railguns wins. That's why, again, I feel like there's got to be more, man. Like, it's not going to be this simple. But the Rossi gets new armor in order to prepare for it. I'm sure that's going to come back around. And, I think Holden said, like, anything that makes us less penetrable, he's on board for. So I'm pretty sure that's going to come back to being relevant as well. One of the other things I found interesting about this episode, which I've already talked about in previous videos, is Philip and this repair tech who he's been working with. I forget his name. It starts with a T. The whole situation with this guy's brother. And I mentioned, I'm like, Philip's got to feel guilty because we know that they left those explosive charges on Ceres, as a parting gift. So if this guy's brother was killed in those explosions, Philip's going to feel responsibility for that. And come to find out, that's exactly what happened. And the only wrinkle that I hadn't already figured out was that he was actually the one who planted the fucking explosive charges there. So now he feels directly responsible, which he should, and we're being honest. But he says, what I think is the important line, the important takeaway from this is that he says he was told that no Belters would be hurt and that they were only going to hurt inners. And that shows, I think, another side of the manipulation that Marco does over people. And I think now Philip is starting to see it. Like, Philip's probably thinking, like, I thought it was only going to be Belters too. I thought it was only going to be inners too and not Belters. And, the back and forth with Philip is getting a little tiresome, where it's like, okay, 1 minute he's on board, the next minute he's got doubts, 1 minute he's on board. That's been Philip's arc this whole season. 1 minute he's on board, the next minute something happens to give him doubt. Then he's on board, then he has doubt. Then he's on board, then he has doubt. And we're back into that cycle again. And you can see Philip tearing up when he's with this guy because Philip knows that this is his fault and that he's bought in to his father's propaganda as well. And that he knows that his father probably knew at the time, or not even knew, didn't even care, like if some Belters were going to get hurt. Because we heard him talking down on Belters. What was that, like 2 episodes ago? Where he's talking about like the mother Belters ain't like us. So we know that he doesn't even really truly care about the Belters, even though he makes himself like the champion of the Belters. And I think all of that is coming to light for Philip because he had his little grand speech at the end of the last episode about standing up against the inners and it's war and we got to do what's right. This whole motivation speech. And then now in this episode, he has to look at his father and kind of think like, my father doesn't really give a fuck about the Belters at all. Like he just wants to fucking win. Like, and seeing how Marco has kind of like, he's like a cult leader. He convinces people, he sells them on this message that he doesn't really believe. It's really just to get them on board to help him serve whatever other purpose he has. And I think that's coming to light for Philip. I still stick strongly by my Philip is going to betray Marco prediction, which I think I probably mentioned that back in some of the season 5 videos, how I felt that was going to happen. But that's how long they've been doing this thing where you have reason to doubt whether or not Philip is going to abandon Marco or not. But like, it also shows how deeply ingrained Marco is in his psyche. Like, and even though I've grown tired of the back and forth, like making us think like, oh, now he's going to leave. Now he's going to stay. Now he's going to, I'm tired of that. But that's the reality of the situation when you've been that infected, that brainwashed by someone you admire. And you have all of these things going on around you to let you know, like, this guy's full of shit. But you're so, you're just so ingrained in everything that he's taught you your whole life that it's just hard for you to just walk away from it. And so there is a little bit of realism to that, to like how much is Philip going to have to see before he jumps ship, no pun intended. And he might be at that point because he built this relationship with this guy. Now this guy's in this cell, he's crying and he's lost his brother and it's all his fault. And it's because of this dream that Marco has sold everybody on, but that's not really real. And I think that's really gonna resonate with Philip going into finale. They give a nice send off, I think, for Kamina and Joseph. That they're not going to be leaving Ceres. That little arm, that little arm thing they were growing on, it was ridiculous. But hey, I'm all for wacky visuals, and yeah, that whole all the visuals involving his arm from the minute it got trapped to to the end of this episode, all visuals involving his arm have been ridiculous. Another one of my favorite scenes of this episode is Amos on Ceres, because as soon as who was it? It was Peaches that said like, "Oh, Amos went onto the station." I'm like, "Oh shit, Amos about to get into some shit." But I didn't think that Amos was getting in trouble in any kind of way. But we remember him mentioning something like they got great brothels and bars or something like that. And as soon as we see Amos, he's fucking trashed, and I'm all for that. He's been what did Bobby say he was doing? Boozing and fucking, or drinking and fucking, something like that. Amos is having a good old time. He lets slip to Bobby, not let slip, but he tells Bobby that Holden disarmed that nuke, and Bobby underreacts to me. Like, I feel like it's gonna come up again in the next episode, which is again one of the 8 million things they got addressed next week, which I have a list of things. Add Bobby addressing Holden to that list, because Bobby's been the main one still pissed off about this nuke not working. And then to find out Holden disarmed it, like, I feel like she was not as mad in that moment as I expected her to be, but I do still expect her to confront Holden at some point about that. And then the last interesting part is Amos offers the dick. I don't know if she took it or not, and I don't think we're supposed to know. I think we'll probably find out. That would be a good way to open the next episode after they do the Laconia part. They open the next episode and it's like Amos and Bobby in bed. Like, I think that would be great. But yeah, he offers for her to hit the brothel up with him, and she says with you. I like the fact that she says with you or with you in a way it was like, you know the difference. It's like, you want me to tag along and do my own thing while you do your own thing, or are you talking about like you want me and you to, you know, go ahead and do it? And he was like, he's true Amos fashion, like either way, like it's all good. So I mean, we saw that coming with the kind of like the pet names. They both kind of like have this. I think this toughness that they each admire in one another. It's inevitable. I think they probably went through with it. I really hope that's how they open the episode after the Laconia piece. And then lastly, Drummer, who has been kind of like on the sidelines for most of this season, is the focal point of this episode. She drops off the supplies that she stole from the supply depot to Ceres. And in that time, she, against her wishes, meets up with Naomi, who they have their own kind of like reconciliation of sorts with what they've dealt with, but also the main part, which is Naomi essentially on behalf of Holden, letting Kamina know that Avasarala really wants you to join with her. And I think that I like the dynamic of the conflict there, of the idea of the Inners and the Belters joining up, and because they've dabbled with that a lot more than I think you would think of when you just kind of reflect. Because like we've seen Naomi in particular being really conflicted with attacking Belters, or on behalf of like just trying to catch Marco. Like the Belter lives that have been lost going after Marco, she's really been conflicted about that. And her and Kamina have it out over that exact same kind of concept. And Avasarala, I think, does a really great job of selling Kamina on why she should join up. And that's how we end the episode with this alliance. And I think that's a cool ending to the episode, but I thought we were going to like kind of get the ball rolling on how things are ultimately going to end up, as opposed to just setting up this alliance. But again, that's just one of the many reasons why I think there's so much more left to cover that can be covered in one episode, unless that fucker's like 2 hours long, which I'm totally okay with, by the way. So that's really all that happened in this episode. But like I said, there's still a few things left to address. I already mentioned, how's the Laconia storyline going to tie in? I don't know. We know that's the railguns on the ring station are probably what Cortazar's been referring to, and what has kept Marco so encouraged. But how are they going to connect that to this final battle? And what is this whole idea of the protomolecule being able to bring people back to life, or bring organisms back to life? How is that going to tie into the main storyline? And I truly don't think it's possible to tie that into this final episode. Unless they fucking bring Alex back to life. I don't know. But Yeah, there's a lot to do with that. They're not going to bring Alex back to life, but there's a lot to do with tying that in, and I don't think that can be contained in one episode. They mention offhand, Avasarala does, about the what Prax discovered about that food supply. I can't remember what it was called. There was a word he used in particular, but it was some sort of something that could make a large amount of food with very little resources. And it's mentioned in like a one-line throwaway, but that's got to be important at some point. So that I feel like is something that needs to be addressed in the finale that I feel like they just probably won't get to. So the whole thing about the disappearing ships that Holden brings to Avasarala, and he's cut off to be told about the railguns, but this is still important too, because he's kind of saying like the more we use the ring gate, the more pissed off it gets, and the more likely we are to have ships just disappearing. It's just eating up ships. And again, how's that gonna factor in? Like it could factor into this final battle where like people go in and out of the ring gate and a ship disappears, whatever. But long-term consequences, I think, need to come out of this in some sort of way. Like these whole architects of the ring gate and all the proto-molecule stuff, like that needs more time to come to its conclusion than one episode, when the one episode clearly is gonna be centrally focused on stopping Marco. So there's still a whole lot there. And I love how it's just how Holden has got to be the one to say, like, we need to share this with Marco. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, Holden and his ideas, bro. Holden, man, I just can't get over his ideas. But that's all I have for this episode. I really think this was a fun episode to kind of like transition us into the finale. And if I truly believe that we were not getting any more episodes, I'd probably be disappointed in this episode, since it only really served to set up the final episode, which again is fine if you have a normal length of a season, but with only 6 short episodes, it seems like a poor decision to kind of like almost waste one as like a setup episode. But it also simultaneously gave me like pretty strong confidence that we're going to get more Expanse in the future in some different sort of way. And if that's the case, then I'm perfectly satisfied with this episode. I've fully reserved the right to come back and be like, yo, they really shit bed with wasting episode 5 with setup. But I think we're gonna get more. And again, I'm hoping the finale is an hour and a half or something like that, and maybe they will wrap up all of these things in that time. But we'll see next week, and I don't know, it might be the end of the Expanse, it might not be, but we'll see. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace.